The silence of the Galactic Council chamber was broken by the sharp echo of boots on polished steel. Delegates from 100 worlds turned their eyes to the human who dared walk into the most guarded place in the galaxy. His name was Kale, HFY Sci-Fi, man with no banners and no allegiance. Some called him an assassin. Others whispered that he was the last weapon Earth had sent into space before disappearing from the map of stars. Kale's eyes scanned the chamber without fear. His mission was simple yet impossible. The Galactic Ruler sat at the far end of the hall, guarded by soldiers, drones, and a single figure that every world feared. She was known only as Ceres, the living blade of the throne. Her duty was to protect the ruler at all costs. No one had ever survived facing her. Ceres was not like the other guards. Her body was wrapped in a white armored suit that moved like a second skin, glowing softly with alien technology. Long red hair spilled down her back, and fox-like ears rose proudly from her head. She was both beautiful and deadly, and her presence silenced even the most powerful voices in the council. Kale stopped in the center of the hall, and the guards raised their weapons. But Ceres lifted her hand, and they obeyed. Her golden eyes fixed on him as if she could already see the outcome of this meeting. She walked forward with slow, perfect grace, each step echoing like a warning. "You are far from home, human," she said, her voice smooth and cold. "Do you know what happens to assassins here?" Kale's lips curved into the faintest smile. "They either fail, or they change the future." The chamber stirred with whispers. No one spoke to Ceres that way. But Kale was not like the others she had faced. He did not tremble. He did not beg. And that made him dangerous. Ceres drew her. Weapon with a swift motion, the sleek alien pistol gleaming in the light. She aimed directly at Kale's head. He did not move. His calmness unsettled her more than an army ever could. For the first time in years, she felt the faint spark of curiosity. "Why do you not kneel?" she asked. "Because," Kale replied, his voice steady. "I am not here to kneel. I am here to show you what fear really is." The chamber grew tense. Delegates leaned forward, some eager to see the human destroyed, others silently hoping for the impossible. Ceres narrowed her eyes and stepped closer, her gun pressing against his forehead. Yet Kale's heartbeat never changed. She studied him, and for a brief moment her perfect discipline cracked. There was something in his eyes she had never seen before. Resolve born from a world that the Council had always considered a mistake. Humanity had been labeled reckless, dangerous, and doomed to extinction. Yet here he stood, fearless before the blade of the galaxy. The ruler watched from his throne, silent and curious. He did not order Ceres to kill, nor did he call for the guards. He wanted to see what would happen next. Kyle leaned forward just enough for his words to reach only her. "You think I came here to kill? But my mission is greater than that. You guard your ruler with lethal intent. I guard something else, truth, and once you see it, nothing will ever be the same." For the first time in her long service, Ceres hesitated. The council chamber, the guards, the ruler, all seemed to vanish in that moment. It was only her and the human, standing at the edge of something neither of them understood. Kale knew then that the war had already begun, not the war of armies, but the war of hearts, loyalty, and truth. And Ceres, the most feared protector in the galaxy, was about to face the one challenge she had never been trained for. The moment of silence stretched in the council chamber, thick like a blade hanging in the air. Ceres had her weapon pressed against Kyle's forehead, her finger steady on the trigger. Every soldier around the chamber waited for her command. But her golden eyes narrowed as she studied him, searching for something she could not name. Kyle did not move. His calm expression was more unsettling than any threat. He looked like a man who already knew the ending of the story, and that frightened her more than she wished to admit. "You are a fool," Ceres finally said, her voice cold and sharp. "No one has stood here and lived. Not one assassin, not one traitor, not even the bravest of generals. Do you think you are different?" Kyle tilted his head slightly. Different? No. Necessary? Yes. The words cut through her like a strange kind of weapon. Necessary? It was not arrogance, it was not desperation. It was something else. Conviction. The ruler shifted on his throne, his piercing gaze fixed on the two of them. He raised a hand, and the chamber grew silent again. "Let him speak," the ruler commanded. His voice echoed with authority that demanded obedience. Saris lowered the pistol by an inch but did not holster it. Her every instinct told her to shoot, to finish this human before he became a danger. Yet the ruler's command bound her, and so she listened. Kale's voice carried across the chamber with measured strength. "You think humanity is gone, erased by the judgment of your council. You called us reckless, a mistake of evolution, too dangerous to exist among the stars, but you were wrong. We survived, and I am here as proof." Murmurs filled the chamber. Delegates leaned toward one another, exchanging whispers of disbelief. Humanity had been declared extinct decades ago. Their worlds burned, their colonies erased. How could one stand here now? Saris tightened her grip on the weapon again, but something inside her stirred. She remembered the battles of old, the rumors of humans who fought like storms, who never bent even when crushed by greater forces. Could it be true that they had survived? The ruler leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "If you have come only to remind us of your existence, you waste your final breath. Tell me, human, what is your mission?" Kale's gaze locked with Saris, for a heartbeat before turning to the ruler. "My mission is not to kill you. My mission is to reveal the lie you built this empire on. You fear humans because we are not controlled. You fear us because we change the rules of every game. And now I will show this council that your perfect order is nothing but chains." The chamber erupted into shouts, some of outrage, others of fear. Sarah stepped forward and pressed her pistol to his chest. "One more word," she warned, her voice trembling with a fire she had not felt in years. "And I will end you here." But Kyle only smiled faintly. "Then do it. End me. But if you do, you will never know the truth I carry, and that truth is what will break your empire." The ruler raised his hand once more, silencing the uproar. His expression was unreadable, caught between curiosity and threat. "Saris," he said calmly, "do not kill him. Not yet." For the first time in her service, Saris felt her loyalty waver. She was bound to protect the ruler, but something about this human pulled at her discipline like a current, dragging her into unknown waters. She holstered her weapon, though every part of her screamed against it. Kyle exhaled slowly, as if he had expected this. He looked at her not with triumph, but with something deeper. Respect. "You see," he said softly, only loud enough for her to hear. "The war has already begun, and you are standing on the edge of it." Saris clenched her fists. She did not understand why her heart raced, why her thoughts blurred, why this human made her question the duty she had followed without doubt for years. But one thing was certain. Her world had changed the moment he walked into that chamber. Kale was escorted out of the council chamber, not by soldiers, but by Saris herself. Her weapon remained close to her side, ready to draw at a breath's notice. He walked calmly beside her, as though he were a guest, not a prisoner. The eyes of alien delegates followed them until the chamber doors closed behind, leaving only the echo of boots down the long metallic corridor. "You are alive only because the ruler is curious," Saris said, her tone sharp and cold. "That curiosity will not last. When it ends, so will you." Kale glanced at her with a faint smile. "And yet you did not pull the trigger when you had the chance. Why?" Saris froze for a step, then continued walking without answering. She told herself it was because of the ruler's command. She told herself it was duty. But in the silence of her own thoughts, the question burned like a wound. The corridor opened into a vast training hall where guards were stationed and combat machines stood ready. Saris stopped and gestured sharply. "Here, you will be tested. The ruler wants to know what kind of human you are, if you are warrior or liar." Kale's expression never changed. Then let him watch closely. The floor of the hall shifted, plates sliding aside to reveal a wide, circular arena. Drones hovered in the air, glowing with red sensors. Blades unfolded from their frames, sharp and fast. They were built for killing, not for practice. Saris activated the arena with a flick of her hand. If you survive, you may speak again before the ruler. If you die, then the galaxy will forget you. Kyle stepped onto the platform without hesitation, the drones whirred to life, circling him like predators. The guards who watched from the edges smirked. None believed he would last even a minute. The first drone struck, slicing the air with blinding speed. Kyle moved like a shadow, ducking beneath, the blade twisting his body and striking the drone with his bare hand. Sparks flew as the machine spun out of control and crashed into the ground. The crowd of guards muttered in shock. Saris narrowed her eyes. His movements were precise, almost too precise. He did not fight like an ordinary soldier. He fought like someone who had faced death too many times and learned to dance with it. 2 more drones attacked. Kale grabbed the arm of one, using its momentum to slam it into the other. Metal screeched and both shattered to the ground. He stood tall, breathing evenly, his eyes cold and sharp. Saris felt her chest tighten. She had trained with the best, warriors across the galaxy, but she had never seen anyone move with such raw efficiency. No wasted motion, no hesitation, only purpose. The last drone dove from above, blades aimed at his neck. Kyle leapt higher than anyone thought possible, catching the drone midair. With a brutal twist, he tore its core out and landed silently as its body crashed behind him. The arena grew silent. The test was over. Kyle had destroyed every machine without a weapon, without fear. Saris walked forward slowly, her face calm, but inside, her thoughts clashed. This human was not just surviving, he was proving something. She could no longer dismiss him as a reckless fool. Kale looked at her, his voice steady. Now you've seen what humanity is. We are not your mistake, we are your mirror. And the galaxy is not ready for that reflection. The doors at the far end of the hall opened, and the Galactic Ruler entered, his cloak trailing behind him. He had watched everything from the shadows. His eyes gleamed with quiet interest. "Well done, human," the ruler said, his voice echoing. "You fight as the stories claimed, but skill is only one measure. Tomorrow I will give you a mission. Survive it, and perhaps your words will matter." Saris bowed her head at the ruler's command, but she kept her gaze locked on Kale. Something inside her had shifted. For the first time in her service, she wondered if her loyalty was being tested, not his. The next day arrived with the sound of alarms across the palace ship. The Galactic Ruler had spoken his command, and Saris had been tasked to deliver it. She found Kyle waiting in the guarded chamber, standing as if he were free, though armed soldiers surrounded him on every side. His calm gaze never wavered. Saris stepped forward, her long red hair flowing behind her, her white armored suit gleaming in the morning lights. She carried no weapon in hand, but everyone knew she didn't need one. Her presence alone was enough to make even seasoned generals uneasy. "The ruler has given you a mission," she said coldly. "Complete it, and he may grant you another day of life. Fail, and no one will ever speak of you again." Kyle tilted his head slightly. "What kind of mission requires me when you have armies at your command?" Her golden eyes narrowed. "That is not for me to answer, but you should know. The ruler does not test for victory. He tests for truth." Moments later, Kyle was escorted to the landing bay, with Saris walking beside him. A sleek transport shuttle waited, glowing with alien technology. Beyond it, the stars burned against the endless dark. Saris activated the control panel on her wrist, and a hologram shimmered in the air. It displayed a planet scarred by war, its surface broken with deep craters and burning scars of old battles. "This world," Saris said, "is where you will go. Pirates infest its ruins. They grow bold, stealing supplies from the Empire's fleets. The ruler wants to see how you handle them." Kyle studied the hologram, then looked at her. "You mean he wants to see if I die there?" Saris did not answer. She only turned and entered the shuttle, expecting him to follow. Against all sense, Kyle laughed softly. So even his blade goes with me. I should be honored. Inside the shuttle, silence filled the space. Saris sat opposite him, her eyes fixed on the stars as the ship left the palace dock. She could feel his gaze on her, and it unsettled her more than any battle ever had. Finally, she spoke. You do not fear death, why? Kale's expression softened, though his voice stayed firm. Because death has followed humanity since the beginning. We learned long ago that fear wastes the time we have left. What matters is what we change before the end. His words struck her deeper than she wished to admit. She had lived her life by strict orders, never questioning, never doubting. Yet this human spoke with freedom, as though chains could never hold him. The shuttle pierced through the atmosphere of the broken planet. Flames streaked across the sky before they landed on the cracked ground. The ruins of an old city stretched before them, shattered towers leaning like bones of a long-dead giant. In the distance, smoke curled where pirate camps burned their stolen fuel. Saris stood first, her hand resting on her pistol. Stay close. These pirates will kill you before you can speak your truths. Kyle stepped beside her, his eyes scanning the ruins. Then it is a good thing I did not come here only to speak. They moved through the city, shadows shifting between broken walls. Soon the pirates emerged, tall, twisted aliens armed with scavenged weapons, their laughter cruel and sharp. They surrounded the pair, their numbers far greater than any sane fighter would face. Saris raised her weapon, her stance perfect and unyielding. Kale, however, stepped forward with his hands empty. What are you doing? Saris hissed. He looked back at her with calm eyes. Showing you the difference between surviving and living. Then, as the pirates lunged, Kale moved. Not with hesitation, not with fear, but with deadly purpose. Saris found herself covering his flank without even thinking. For the first time in her long service, she was not protecting the ruler but fighting beside someone who did not command her. Someone who made her want to. And deep inside, though she tried to bury it, she felt the first spark of something she had never known before. Trust. The pirates roared as they charged from the shadows, weapons raised. Blades glinted in the dim light and crude rifles spat bolts of fire. Dust filled the air as Kale and Saris stood back to back in the ruined street. Saris fired first, her pistol snapping with bright energy. Each shot found its target, dropping a pirate before they could strike. Her movements were fast, sharp, and flawless. She was the blade of the ruler, and every strike showed why no one had ever bested her. Kyle, however, fought with no weapon at all. He lunged at the first pirate, twisting aside from a jagged blade and smashing his fist into the alien's throat. Another swung at him from behind, but Kale spun low, sweeping the legs out from under his attacker. He moved like a storm, improvised, relentless, and terrifying in its precision. Saris glanced at him between shots, surprised again by his lack of hesitation. Most soldiers relied on armor and weapons. Kyle relied only on instinct, strength, and a calmness that unsettled even her. Why don't you pick up a gun? She shouted while blasting two more attackers. Because, Kale replied, his voice steady even in the chaos. Weapons break. Purpose does not. The pirates grew furious, throwing themselves at the pair with reckless rage. But Kale's body became a weapon of its own. He grabbed one pirate's blade and turned it against him in a single motion, then hurled the body into two more charging at Saris. For the first time in her long service, Saris found herself trusting someone at her side. She moved with him, her shots protecting his blind spots while his fists and sudden strikes cleared the gaps between her attacks. Together they fought as if they had trained for years, though they had only just met. One of the pirate leaders shouted an order, and a heavy gunner rolled forward with a mounted cannon. The air burned with heat as the weapon spat fire down the street. Saris dove behind a wall, her armor glowing from the near hit. Kyle pulled her back just as another blast tore the ground where she had stood. You could have died, she snapped, glaring at him. Kale smirked. So could you. Before she could respond, he dashed out from cover, sprinting straight toward the cannon. The pirates laughed. certain the human was throwing his life away. But Kale zigzagged through the fire, leaping from a broken pillar and landing on the gunner's shoulders. With brutal strength, he wrenched the cannon free and slammed it down, shattering the weapon into pieces. The pirates froze, their confidence shattering. For the first time, fear filled their eyes. They had seen warriors before, but never like this. Sarah stood slowly, lowering her pistol. She watched Kale breathe heavily but still standing, dust and ash clinging to him. In that moment, she realized the pirates were not just fighting a man. They were fighting a force that refused to bend. The remaining pirates fled into the ruins, their courage broken. The battlefield grew silent, leaving only the sound of Sarah's steady breath and Kale's calm heartbeat. She approached him, her golden eyes searching his face. "You are reckless," she said, though her voice had softened. "Reckless and foolish." Kyle wiped the sweat from his brow. "Maybe, but we are alive, and they are not." For a long moment, Sarah said nothing. She felt the strange pull again, the spark she tried to bury. Fighting beside him had felt different than anything she had known. It was not duty. It was choice. Finally, she turned away, forcing her voice back to its cold edge. "Do not think this changes anything. You are still under the ruler's eye. One mistake and I will finish what I started in the chamber." Kyle smiled faintly. "Then I'll just have to keep giving you reasons not to." As they walked through the smoking ruins, the mission was not yet complete. The pirates were scattered, but Kyle knew something larger hid behind them. He could feel it in the silence of the city, in the way Sarah's instincts kept her hand on her weapon. The fight had proven one thing: together, they were more dangerous than apart. But the real test was still waiting. The ruins grew quiet after the battle, but Kale did not relax. His eyes scanned every broken wall, every shattered tower, as if expecting something worse to emerge. Sarah walked beside him, her pistol still in hand. She could feel it too. The silence was not victory. It was warning. They moved deeper into the city, the air heavy with smoke from the pirate camps. Black banners marked their hideouts, but most had been abandoned in haste. The survivors had fled, and that troubled Sarah. Pirates were greedy and stubborn. They rarely ran unless something greater forced them to. Kale knelt near a scorched crate, brushing away the ash. Inside lay weapons, but not the crude kind scavengers usually carried. These were crafted with precision, marked by the sigil of the council's own armories. He looked up at Sarah, his jaw tightening. "These weapons aren't stolen," Kyle said quietly. "They were given." Sarah froze, her golden eyes fixed on the markings. She knew the designs well. Only the ruler's most trusted suppliers produced them. Her throat tightened. If the pirates carried these, it meant someone inside. The Empire wanted them armed. "That is not possible," she said firmly, though her voice lacked its usual certainty. "The Empire would never supply criminals." Kyle stood, his gaze piercing. "Wouldn't it? Or is the Empire more afraid of rebellion than you realize? Pirates make a good excuse to keep the council in fear. Fear keeps rulers in power." Sarah wanted to dismiss his words, to call them lies meant to divide her loyalty. But she remembered the ruler's expression in the chamber, the way he had let Kale live, the way he had ordered this mission. Was it a test or a trap? Before she could answer, the ground shook beneath their feet. From the shadows of the ruined towers, massive figures emerged, machines, walking on heavy legs, their bodies bristling with cannons and blades. They were not pirate machines. They were Empire war constructs painted black to hide their origin. Kyle clenched his fists. So this is the truth he wanted me to find. The machines opened fire, their cannons tearing through the street. Sarah grabbed Kale, pulling him behind a collapsed wall as blasts ripped stone to dust. For the first time, she felt doubt tearing at her discipline. If the Empire had sent these machines, then the mission was not to test Kale's skill. It was to erase him. "We are being hunted," Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. "By my own kind." Kale's eyes never left the machines. "Then you'll have to decide." Do you guard a ruler who feeds lies? Or do you guard the truth standing in front of you? Her pulse quickened. The words cut deep because part of her already knew the answer. She raised her weapon, her golden eyes burning with a fire she had not felt before. The machines closed in. Kyle moved first, sprinting across the broken ground as cannon fire followed. Saris covered him, her shots striking weak points in the machine's armor. One construct fell, crashing in a shower of sparks. But two more advanced, surrounding them in a deadly circle. Kyle leapt onto one machine, climbing its armored frame like a predator. He ripped open a panel and jammed a stolen pirate blade into its circuits. The machine shuddered before collapsing in flames. Saris destroyed the last with precise shots to its fuel chamber, the explosion lighting the ruins in bright fire. When the smoke cleared, both stood breathing heavily, their bodies scarred by dust and burns. The city lay in silence again. But this time Saris knew what it meant. This silence was not warning, it was betrayal. She lowered her weapon, her voice almost breaking. All my life, I have guarded the ruler with everything I am, but today, I saw his hand in the shadows, and now I don't know who I am guarding anymore. Kale stepped closer, his gaze steady and unyielding. Then guard what you know is right. Guard the truth. That's why I came. Not to kill your ruler, but to show you this. Her golden eyes met his, and for the first time, Saris did not feel like the blade of the ruler. She felt like something else. Someone standing at the edge of a choice that would change everything. The ruins smoldered in silence, broken machines scattered like corpses of giants. Smoke curled into the sky, and the bitter scent of burning metal lingered in the air. Saris stood still, her pistol lowered, her breath heavy. For the first time, in years she felt unsteady. The truth she had just seen was heavier than any battle. Kale walked among the wreckage, kicking aside broken plates of armor until he uncovered the core of one of the machines. The emblem of the Empire was etched into its design. He lifted it and tossed it at her feet. Proof, he said simply. Saris stared at the metal, her golden eyes wide. She could no longer pretend it was a trick. The Empire itself had armed the pirates and sent these machines. Her whole life, her loyalty, her identity as the ruler's blade, shaken in one moment. Why? She whispered. Kyle's gaze was steady. Because power survives on fear. The ruler keeps control by feeding it. Pirates, rebels, enemies. Sometimes they are real. Sometimes they are created. Your loyalty made you blind to it. The words struck deeper than any weapon. Saris wanted to deny them, but her heart betrayed her. She remembered missions where outcomes never made sense, enemies who vanished without trace, truths hidden under orders. How many times had she already guarded a lie? Before she could speak again, her wrist communicator lit up. The ruler's voice filled the air, calm and commanding. Saris. Bring the human back at once. Her body stiffened. Even across the distance, his voice carried the weight of command. Yes, my ruler, she answered automatically, though her hand trembled. Kale stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. If you obey, you deliver me to death. If you resist, you betray everything you've ever been. So what do you choose? Her heart pounded. Her training told her to kill him now, end this before his words broke her further. But her instincts screamed another truth. She had seen his strength, his courage, and his refusal to bow. Fighting beside him had felt different. It had felt real. She holstered her pistol slowly. If I return you now, he will destroy you. But if I do not... She stopped, struggling with the weight of her own words. Kale's expression softened, though his voice stayed sharp. Then you will finally be free. The communicator crackled again. Saris, do not fail me. Bring him back. Her golden eyes hardened, but not in obedience. For the first time she turned off the device, silencing the ruler's voice. The act felt like cutting chains she had worn all her life. Kale watched her with quiet respect. That was not easy. No, she admitted, her voice low. But Neither is living a lie. The sound of engines echoed in the distance, Imperial dropships descending through the smoke. The Empire was already coming for them. Ceres's training told her to prepare for extraction, but her heart told her something else. They were no longer allies of convenience. They were fugitives. Kyle looked at the sky, then back at her. If we leave now, we vanish into the ruins. If we stay, we fight the Empire head-on. What's it going to be? Ceres's hand tightened on her weapon. She had sworn to protect the ruler with lethal intent. Now, for the first time, she wanted to protect something else, this human, this truth he carried, and perhaps the freedom she had never known. We fight, she said, her voice steady with new resolve. Kale gave a small nod, as though he had expected nothing else. Then, let's make the galaxy remember what happens when truth stands against power. The dropships roared closer, their shadows covering the broken city. Ceres stood at Kale's side, her doubts burned away, her choice made. No longer the ruler's blade, she was now something greater, her own weapon, her own will, and together, human and alien prepared to face the storm. The sky above the ruined city burned red as Imperial dropships descended. Their engines thundered, sending dust and ash into the air. Soldiers poured from their hulls, armored in black steel, rifles glowing with cold energy. At their center stood a towering hologram of the Galactic Ruler, projected for all to see. His calm, cruel eyes glared down at Kale and Ceres. You disappoint me, Ceres, the ruler's voice echoed, steady and sharp. My most loyal blade, now turned against the hand that forged you. Did this human twist you so easily? Ceres stood tall, her golden eyes unflinching. No, ruler. You twisted me long ago. You fed me lies and called them duty. But today, I saw truth. The soldiers raised their weapons at the command of his silent hand. Kyle stepped forward, his body tense but his face calm. He had expected this. Death was always part of the path. But his voice carried across the battlefield with iron strength. You fear humanity because you cannot control us. You fear us because we remind you that power is not eternal. That is why you tried to erase us. But we are still here. And as long as one of us stands, your empire will never rest. The soldiers advanced, their boots shaking the ground. Ceres drew her pistol, her stance firm. Kale clenched his fists, ready to fight with nothing but will. For a heartbeat, silence held, the kind of silence before storms. Then the storm broke. Energy fire lit the ruins, beams tearing through stone and steel. Ceres moved with flawless precision, her shots finding soldier after soldier. Kyle fought, like a beast unleashed, charging into the fray, tearing weapons from his enemies and turning them against their own lines. Every strike was brutal, every move born of survival and defiance. The soldiers fell one by one, but the Empire's numbers kept pressing. The dropships rained more troops, their shadows stretching across the battlefield. Ceres fought at Kale's side, their movements aligned as if they had always been partners. She realized then that she was not protecting him. She was fighting with him for something greater than herself. The hologram of the ruler loomed above, his voice cutting through the chaos. You cannot win. The Empire is eternal. Kill them. Both, but Ceres shouted back, her voice filled with fire. No empire is eternal, not one built on fear. With those words, she turned her pistol on the dropship's core reactor and fired. The explosion lit the sky, fire swallowing metal. Soldiers scattered, panic breaking their perfect order. Kyle seized the moment, climbing the wreckage and hurling a stolen blade into the hologram's projector. The image of the ruler flickered and died, leaving only smoke and silence. The battlefield stilled. The remaining soldiers, leaderless and shaken, began to retreat into the sky. The ruins grew quiet once more, except for the sound of Ceres and Kale breathing side by side. Ceres lowered her weapon, her golden eyes softening. It's done. The ruler will not forgive this. He will come for us. Kale wiped the blood from his brow, a faint smile on his lips. Then let him come. We'll be ready. For a long moment they stood in the ashes of the Empire's lies. The bond between them was no longer unspoken. It was carved in fire and battle. Ceres had once been the ruler's blade. Now she was something far greater, her own. She looked at Kale, and for the first time in her long service, she felt hope. "What happens now, human?" Kyle glanced at the stars above, his voice steady. "Now the galaxy learns the truth, and when it does, everything will change." Together they walked from the ruins side by side, not as assassin and guard, but as allies bound by truth, standing against a galaxy built on fear. And though the ruler still sat on his throne, watching from afar, he knew the tide had shifted. One human and one alien had already changed everything.